Okay, hi everybody. This is Kelly Ashby with Kelly Ashby Consulting. I'm here today with Scott Kokenauer with Serving Strong, and we've been talking a little bit today about this idea of authenticity and vulnerability and building trust, especially in the workplace and in the corporate world. And Scott, I'm just kind of curious about what your thoughts are as far as how do we be vulnerable so that we can build trust when we're in the workplace, because it seems like vulnerability doesn't belong in the workplace, perhaps. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think historically, um, it has been something that you don't want people to see. You don't want to you don't want to let other people see you struggle.
Right.
Thankfully, I think that's breaking down a bit because my viewpoint is I think we go from a industrial society to a service society. Industrial has all the bells and whistles of a organizational chart. What is it? Command and control,
Yeah.
treating people like cogs in a an assembly line.
Yep.
But in a service industry, especially now with the pandemic that we're facing and processing as a world, with work at home and Zoom meetings and things like that, the the vulnerability is actually becoming an asset, in my opinion.
I
I
agree.
think the more vulnerable you can be, the deeper the connection you can make. Now, I say that, but there are some. I think there, like everything, there are boundaries.
Right.
Like a leader, there are things a leader does not tell everybody. You
Sure.
know, it would just not do any good. Um, but there are some people that he does need or she need to tell. Um, it's kind of a need to know sort of thing.
Right.
But generally speaking, vulnerability I think is very important.
Yeah, I agree with you. I one of the things that one of the videos that I watched recently, Brene Brown, she talks about in her
Hmm.
research on shame, but also on the flip side of that, how can we build more meaningful and trusting relationships with one another so that we can perform at our highest, is this idea about, if we're not vulnerable, then, well, one, we can't be empathetic. And empathy is becoming
Hmm.
more and more important, um, in in the workplace and in different environments, again, in order to build those strong relationships with people, and so that people can, work together to be a high performing team. And so, the risks that are associated with really being vulnerable, and of course, right place, right time, right person, like you were alluding to, and right subject,
Hmm.
allows taking that risk allows for the great reward of building a more
Hmm.
trustworthy environment, or a more trustworthy relationship with your team. And so just kind of weighing the pros and cons, to being willing to take that risk so that you can see the
Right.
benefits and reap the benefits of an authentic and genuine, workplace. So yeah, it's
Right.
interesting stuff to me. So go ahead, what were you going to add?
Well, yeah. Getting back to the manufacturing mindset, when you're treating people like things, um, who needs empathy
Right.
in that sort of environment?
Yeah.
But when you're in a service industry where you're really whether it's teaching in a college or it's coaching or just any service industry, even I'm sitting in a coffee shop, the people who work at the coffee shop, if they did not have empathy, they wouldn't be in business very long because it's expected. Um, but I think it's interesting from a gender perspective,
Okay.
um, representing the male perspective.
Yep.
Um, I think that vulnerability is not, it doesn't come natural. Uh,
Right.
and we have to work at that. But and I think that's what makes the female gender so much more able to have that empathy.
Okay.
But it's not insurmountable. I think the male has within him the ability to be vulnerable, but it's not.
Right.
I wouldn't say it's a. And I'm not saying all males are here, all females are here.
Oh,
There's
sure.
always a
Sure.
mix,
Yeah.
but there's an ego associated with the struggle to be vulnerable.
Right. And I think that, you know, there's a generational piece too. I think
Mm.
that I'm going to make some assumptions here. I think that, you know, kids growing up at the time, perhaps you and I grew up, um, you know, boys were, you know, taught be tough, you know, don't cry, that type of thing. And it was okay for girls to cry and show emotion. And I don't know how healthy that was personally, as far as, you know, boys having to bottle it all up and just be tough, or teaching them that that's what's expected
Mhm.
to be a real man kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I think that hopefully that's changing, you know, with the younger kids and younger generations that are now raising their own children. I don't know, but wondering what kind of dynamic that will create for workplaces and the future, as far as how we look at leadership.
I think Brene Brown has done a good job of associating strength with vulnerability,
True.
and I think that helps with the shift, if you will, because naturally, a lot of people think to be vulnerable is to be weak.
Right.
And I think it's more than that, much more than that. I think you can make a case that someone who is vulnerable, appropriately vulnerable, and empathetic, actually has more strength than the person who is holding on to something that really isn't there, holding on to an ego that they have to maintain.
Yeah,
It's like a sandcastle.
that's very interesting. Yeah, I
Hmm.
agree with you. You know, it does take a lot of strength and courage to be willing to take the risk to be vulnerable, to
Hmm.
really let down your guard and be real, be genuine with people.
Hmm.
So I appreciate you pointing that out. And you're right. I think Brene Brown has done a great job of pairing those two things with, you know, courage, strength, and, well, three things: courage, strength, and vulnerability.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it much more doable for the general male
Yeah.
population. You
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
if they can see that this is a step to, it's no longer force. You don't force yourself into strength. You engage with others with vulnerability to
Yeah.
actually create more work, more produce more results.
It's almost synergistic. You know, when you have an
Hmm.
environment or you have a relationship where both parties or all parties can let down that guard, it almost brings a different kind of energy to the dynamic, or at least that's been my experience.
Hmm.
Is, you know, when I have been able to be that way with other people and people that I work with, I don't know, it's like you can get more done. Even like I talk about, I've been reading recently The Speed of Trust. Are you
Hmm.
familiar with
I'm
that book?
familiar with it.
And yeah, so thinking about, you know, as trust increases, things get done faster and at lower expenses. So there's certainly a business case, if you will, for being able to build trust with other people. So
Right, right. And these are things that someone didn't just dream it up. I think it's built into our DNA. I think we were designed to synergize.
right.
Um, you and I have talked about the work I do. I think that we each have a unique God-given design that was designed to be fully expressed. And when we're fully expressing that, when two or more people are fully expressing their unique God-given design with vulnerability and empathy, there is tremendous synergy.
Yeah.
And the synergy of wow, there's a third alternative we hadn't even thought of and never would have been able to come up with on our own. That's why synergy is 1 + 1 = 3 plus, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
um, you just don't get that when there's not mutual respect.
exactly. I agree
Mhm.
100% with you. Anything else you want to add, or should we close
No,
this up?
that's good for now, I think.
Yeah, thank you for talking with me about that. I'm always interested in what you think about these things. And yeah, like I
Well,
said,
thank
I've
you.
just been kind of wrestling around in my head with this, and wanted to engage in conversation with you about it. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, and one more thing
Yeah.
before we go. The approach that I take, let me give you a real quick background. In 2015, I was 50 years old, had to close a business, through bankruptcy and restart. And as we're recording this, I'm 5 years older, and it's taken me 3.5, 4 years to re-engage my identity. My brand now is to help others design or fully express their unique God-given design. But to get there, I have no problem saying I'm a failure. You
Yeah.
know, I'm a failure who is learning some things, and I think that makes me approachable.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you are listening, if there are those watching this video who are trying to build a business, build it with vulnerability because it makes you approachable.
Yeah.
There's that know, like, and trust. You know, don't seek to be a guru in your
Right.
industry. Seek to be a person of value, person who
Right.
creates value for others. So
Yeah.
I found
Somebody
that that's
that's
helpful.
relatable too. That like
Mhm.
being relatable helps with that being approachable. Yeah.
Right, right.
Very good. Thanks for adding
Okay,
that. I appreciate it.
sure.
All right. This is Kelly and Scott signing off for today. We'll see you again soon.
All right.